Your finances are going to either shrink or expand to how much you need them. In the case that you want to save money, act like that money literally doesn't exist to you. And I promise you, before you know it, you will have a savings account that you are dying to pull money out of because there's just so much money in there. I can almost guarantee you, if you acted like the money you saved didn't exist, you would have way more money in that savings account than you ever could have by trying to consciously save money along a journey. Because when you shrink, let's just say you shrink your income on the back end and you survive off of what you have left. So if you actually use your entire paycheck in your brain as the fact that that's what you have available, that's everything that you will lose or everything that you will use. But if you immediately take some off the top and say, I'm saving this no matter what, and I will survive off of whatever else, that allows you to save money in a way that you probably have never been able to. And when I say your money's going to shrink or expand, it's because it's going to basically fill whatever vacuum you have. So if you have a very, very tiny vacuum, your finances are going to shrink to fill that. If you're like, I only need to save $10 a month, guess what? That's exactly what you'll be saving. $10 a month. But if you say, I desire to save $100 a week, all of a sudden you would be saving $100 a week because your finances are shrinking. Your finances are actively expanding and shrinking to whatever you think in your brain you need them for. So if you don't have a big savings, maybe the problem is not the 3D. Don't blame the 3D. The problem is that the 3D is showing you that all you care about is a small savings. That's what you're projecting. You are subconsciously projecting, well, I only need a little bit of savings. So that's what you got. Your finances expanded to give you that. But if you said, I literally couldn't survive without making $100,000 a month, all of a sudden you would be making that. But because you haven't permanently expanded your brain, you don't get that amount a month. And neither do I, because I haven't expanded my brain to want that. But this is what I'm currently doing with my next income level, where I say, you know what? This amount is my bare minimum, my floor. I don't want to ever make any less than X. And what that does is it not only puts me in my power about money, because it reminds me how much I actually love money and I'm supported by money. And regardless of how much I actually have, I have $1 billion smile on my face. And money consciousness running through my veins all the time. And abundance radiating from me every single second. That's why I created Money Consciousness Community. Because in that community, I post when I'm in the extremely high vibratory states where I'm getting transmissions about money. All of that juicy stuff goes in there. And it's posts that you can use to lift your own self up when you're going through lack and you're feeling scarce. And you say, you know what? I'm going to go over to this community. I'm going to read this post. I'm going to let it uplift me. And you use them as ways to lift yourself up instead of going to scroll on TikTok, which is fine. Be kind to yourself. I love you. But sometimes you're going to say, I don't want to scroll right now. I need something that's going to distract me, but in an elevated way. That's what the community is for. It's linked in my YouTube description of my homepage. So go to my YouTube homepage and it's there. Now, you want to make sure that you are expanding your money to the thought that you have, but you can't do the job of the money. Your only job is to expand the container. So do you actually need $100,000 a month to survive? No. That's why you haven't expanded to that. So we have to pick something that's realistic. Just pick something like an extra 500 or an extra 1,000. And if you're a high achieving woman who is in love with money, in love with dollars and money, bags, ching, 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 and you love money, then it's probably going to be really hard to do that, because we're like, yeah, I know I'm making $100, but I want to make 100,000, and we're okay jumping to big lengths. But let's bring this down to earth, unfortunately. I'm just kidding, but bring it down to earth, right, for a little bit, and say, well, what if I could first calibrate to a different abundance? What if I could do that first? So instead of trying to say, oh, well, this is my container, you say, this is my container and I want it bigger. So if right now you have $100 saved, you could say, well, I want 200. All of a sudden you will have 200. Like, blink your eyes twice. In like a few months, you'll have it. Because your money is constantly expanding and shrinking to the container you give it. And then when you're like, oh, well, I don't need a lot of money in there, that's way too much money in there, you start feeling lack, then expenses come up, and that squeezes some money out. And then you need to take some out, that squeezes some out. You have an unexpected bill, squeeze some out, and then you end up with zero in the savings account. So this is all, the practical is never touch it. Once you contribute, you never touch it to any investments ever. That is like a rule of thumb. Once you invest it, you never touch it ever. Like, assume you're never going to touch it. Because you gave it a job, you let it compound, you let it multiply. That was your job. You've done the job. Leave the money where it is. So you need to expand your floor just a little bit. Again, you're a spiritual girly. This is me too. Like, I'm like, give me 100,000 a month. But I haven't been there yet. So I have to give myself a smaller goal. And then expand and expand and expand and expand. I'm not saying you have to take time. But I'm saying for something practical, so that you can see what it's like to hold a little bit more and then be like, dang, it was only been 3 months and I already doubled my savings just because I thought about wanting a little bit more. What if I could do that every single month? Then you would have way more than you wanted. So when you're saving money to build your savings, you need to really think about the expansion of it and how much you want it to expand. So if it's currently at $300 and you're like, I want it at $500, well, you could probably do that. But in your head, you're like, oh, I have this bill, I have that bill, I have this, I have that coming up. And then that lack thought is what squeezes and shrinks your money needs back to small. So it's your job to stay in the highest mental vibe, so you stop squeezing out the money from the money you already have. Okay? So when you stay in that high vibe, your brain, even if something lack or scarcity happens in your life, your brain knee-jerk reaction is not to save and clench the money, hold on to the money, use what's in my savings, try to stay alive, try to survive. Your brain's not on that. Your brain is on a frequency of abundance, which allows you to keep your money right where it is, or even expand that container bigger. But I'm telling you, it's going to expand to whatever you want it to be. So if that money that you have saved up or that you have invested is not growing, think about that. Am I actually wanting this to grow? Because if I wanted it to, I probably could put an extra 50. I probably could put an extra 100. Right? But then we think to ourselves, oh, that's too small. I don't want to just add 100. I don't want to just add 50. Well, that's what I'm saying. We're spiritual people. We want the world and everything in it, and all the solar system and all the planets. We want it all. But we have to start by expanding it a little bit. And so I'm guilty, super guilty, of just wanting to jump to big goals. But I'm a master at taking lessons and moving forward and just jumping forward and just keep going forward. Scary. It's very scary. I'm a normal human being It's still scary for me, but I know how to do that. So I keep going forward and I keep trucking. And then as I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, my savings is bigger than it's ever been. My investments are better than they ever been. So I get to look back and I feel a sense of confidence because I actually was able to hold what my savings has right now. But then I'm like, ooh, I would love to double that. So now it's like, let's expand it to double it. And as lack thoughts come, it's my responsibility to rise higher than those, stay in a high frequency, and hold the pose and keep doing what I'm doing. Because if I shrink and I go into lack because I want to to double my savings or my investments, and I feel like, oh, I don't have it to do that right now. Well, that puts me in lack mindset, which means I'm definitely not going to attract the money, which means I'm definitely not going to double them. So if you want your best chances of getting your desire, you might want to stay in the receiving energy of abundance. So your money is shrinking and expanding to how much you feel you need, can use, how much you feel like is abundance. Keep track of that. And make sure you're not restricting your container when you feel a little bit of lack. Make sure you're not taking out of those accounts and you're holding that amount. You're saying, no matter what happens, I'm never touching the savings. No matter what. Because I'm telling you, your expenses are going to shrink to how much you give it. So when you start becoming seriously like, I'm investing this amount, I don't care, your income is going to show you, hey, we are going to most definitely give you the money to make sure you can do whatever you need to do because you held it. Okay, if you need this, let's just say, like something that can fit in your hand, right? Or no, let's say something that can fit on a table. And then you don't see what you need to fill up the table. You're like, okay, I guess all I need is what can fit in my hand. And that's what you get. But if you say, nope, I'm waiting on what's going to fill the table. Yep, I already know. It's going to fill the table. And you don't even give anything in your hand to be a substitute. You're like, no substitutes. No substitutes. I don't want anything to fit in my hand. I want it on the table. Okay, so this analogy is like the table is a lot more space. Maybe that's a $1,000 in your savings versus what's in your hand. You can only fit $1, right? If you feel like the 1,000 is just too much, you got to hold that frequency. Don't shrink back, because when you go back into lack, you shrink back. And when you go into lack and you shrink back, you're definitely not going to get what's need to go on the table. You're definitely not going to get it because your mind can't even see it no more. You have to stay in the highest frequency to be able to get it. So make sure that you're not settling for what can fit in your hand. You're holding the frequency of what you actually want, because your money is going to shrink to your lack and expand to your abundance.